Okay, and next up we have Lauren Johnson from Adobe. So, Lauren, just a quick introduction. I first met Lauren 7 years ago at a customer advisory board conference, one of these events, but in person. And, since then, today, Lauren currently manages multiple CAD programs at Adobe. And I know many of you have asked a question and struggle with how do you organize CABs in a large organization, how you get feedback to product, etc. So that's going to be Lauren's main focus for this session, and we're going to have lots of time for Q&A at the end. So please keep the questions coming.
Great. Thank you, Gavin. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. You never know. Sometimes it's a roll of the dice. But thank you so much for having me. I am Lauren Johnson. I'm really excited to be here. It's always great to spend time with your tribe, so to speak. You know, what we do is a little niche sometimes, and so it's great to get together with this community. So just as a quick intro, I've been with Adobe for almost 7 years now. All of those have been spent working on advisory boards, kind of similar to Melanie. I joined the team, learned the ropes, and now I am managing the global program, which is really exciting. I live in Utah with my husband, our 5-year-old little girl, and 2 dogs, which hopefully you will not hear on this meeting. Fingers crossed. But let's jump into it. There are really 3 key areas that I hope you're able to walk away with from this with some ideas, maybe something you can take back to your organization and implement, or even that maybe spark some other conversations within your organizations and your teams. So the first one is structure. Like Gavin mentioned, Adobe is a very, very matrix organization. We have plenty of silos. We also have a lot of different teams that we work with. So how are we navigating that? Feedback actionability. Great. You have all this information that you're getting from these board meetings. Now what? And then, as has been mentioned, a fan favorite, apparently, KPIs and ROI. We all know that these programs are very qualitative in terms of feedback. So how are you reporting that back to the business and really proving out the value of these programs? So I know everyone's off video, but I hope everyone's super excited, got your jazz hands. Gavin, Tatiana, I hope you got your jazz hands too. So hopefully, this is some good information for you. So in terms of structure, these 3 areas represent the various frameworks my team supports. And this is part of how we survive in that matrix organization format. So really comes down to the different needs of our different stakeholders. So we work with well over a dozen teams to support this program because we support every single product line within what we call the Experience Cloud business. So lots of folks are familiar with the creative products that Adobe produces, Photoshop, Illustrator, all of that. And then we have the Experience Cloud, which is all of our digital marketing software solutions. And that's the side of the house that I sit on. But we're also starting to dabble in kind of these cross cloud. So some of the creative products are being used in large companies with our digital marketing software. So navigating that bridge has also come into play recently. So it's an ever-changing landscape that will never not be complex, in all honesty. But it really comes down to how are we addressing the needs of these teams when it comes to feedback. And you'll recognize a lot of these definitions. We've worked with Ignite for many years, have a great relationship with Gavin and Tatiana and everyone. And our program has also been around for a little over 15 years. In that time, we've historically been just focused on customer advisory boards. But over the past 2 years, we've been able to scale up in a few different ways in order to support additional boards like executive advisory boards and user advisory boards. So rather than just strategic decision-making personas, we're now also able to focus on those thought leader executive personas who are thinking more about macro level industry trends And then we also have kind of the flip of that coin as the user advisory board, where these are expert hands-on keyboards users of our technology. As it stands right now, we're currently running 5 customer advisory boards, 3 executive advisory boards. Those are focused specifically by geography. So we have one in North America, one in Europe, and one in Asia Pacific. And then we also have 2 user advisory boards. And as if we weren't busy enough, we also have 3 additional cabs that we are building as we speak. So also in terms of structure, let's do a quick poll. I'm curious where each of your teams sit within your organization. And I know I say team, sometimes it's just you. I have been that person, I get it. And I know some of these, it's hard to kind of capture all of the potential options in the poll. We'll give everyone a few seconds.
And you can see the poll results appearing on your screen, right, Lauren?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Lots of folks in marketing, some in sales, a few in product, other. I know, like Melanie was saying, she lives in product marketing. Great. I see a couple more answers filtering in. Great. So it looks like almost half of you who responded sit in some kind of marketing function, marketing organization, marketing team. So what makes our team really interesting is that we actually live in product. We sit within the product org, and our product teams are key stakeholders. They fund the program. They are who we go to for executive sponsorship, agenda planning, everything from top to bottom involved in running these boards. And, why does that matter? How does that impact the program? The first one is really we're able to focus on improving products and not driving sales. We obviously hope that these conversations, these board meetings result in more sales. Hopefully, if we are discussing the right things and then we're actioning on the feedback and we're building the products that our customers are telling us they need and want. Obviously, the output of that is hopefully increased sales. But because we are so focused on product and they are key stakeholders and, the ones signing the budget checks, it's also easier to keep sales out of the room. We do not include sales in any of our meetings. Obviously, they are part of some of the recruiting conversations, but like Melanie said, I'm just gonna, plus one it. These are not sales conversations. These are not meant to be opportunities for upsell, cross-sell. This is, for lack of a better term, this is a safe space for those customers to really give genuine feedback and build genuine connections with each other and with our internal teams. The next is speed to action. The closer the feedback is to the teams who need it, who need to use it, who are able to action on it, the quicker it can be actioned on. And this also plugs in really well to the ROI piece, which we'll get more into in a couple minutes. But if you're closely partnered with the product teams, you are much more likely to be able to prove out more quantitative ROI. There's pieces like total addressable market that they're researching when they're thinking about developing new products that you can start attributing to these conversations. There's actually number of features, ideas, changes that they're making to their plans based on the feedback that's coming out of these meetings. And those conversations are a lot easier to facilitate when you're so entrenched with the teams already. And then last but certainly not least is the incentivization of your executives and your stakeholders, because they are responsible for that end game, those sales of the products and the success of the product and the adoption of the product. They need the products to succeed. And we are proving the value of these programs that incentivize them to continue investing and to have successful boards, because the more successful the boards are, the more successful their products are going to be. So, feedback actionability. We're talking about being able to prove out more ROI for these programs. We're talking about actioning faster on the feedback. But I think this is something that everyone really kind of runs into hurdles with in terms of tracking feedback, actioning on feedback, closing the feedback loop with our customers, with our members. It's not easy. In all honesty, this is probably one of the most challenging parts of running a board or an advisory board program. So yeah, and I'm seeing some thumbs up. Yeah, we've all felt that pain, right? So in 2022, we really took a step back and started an initiative to try and track those actionable items coming out of board meetings. And I mean, I'm going to be the first to tell you there's no magic bullet. I really wish there was. Our jobs would be a lot easier if that were the case. But really, overall, it has come down to consistency and accountability. And this is, for all intents and purposes, a manual process for us, but it also helps build that partnership with our stakeholders as well as our customers, because we are able to close that customer feedback loop more completely. So to that first point, consistency. As a team, we're building a workflow around this into our overall process, our overall execution process. We have debrief meetings with the respective teams immediately following their board meetings. So we were doing this anyway, but it was more to just understand, hey, what were your key learnings from this? Let's make sure that we met your goals. What could we have done better? Are there any membership concerns we need to address? Were there any gaps? Kind of just those basic checklist items, right? But we're also starting to include, hey, let's discuss and identify what pieces of this conversation you're actually going to be able to take back to the teams, whether that's engineering, whether that's product marketing, whether that's pricing, and have conversations. This is in no way a commitment of, yes, we are going to do those things, or yes, we're going to build that functionality, but it is a conversation, and it forces them to start thinking about, okay, great, I don't have to just check this off my list that I attended this board meeting, I had the conversation. Okay, now I actually have to do the real work on the back end. And sometimes that's hard for us. We're so busy and we just want to, okay, on to the next thing. We've finished the meeting. What's our next project we're on to? But this helps change that mindset. And as we're getting into this groove, the hope is that we can also provide even just a really quick 5-minute update in subsequent meetings to members at the beginning, where we provide an update on those items. Hey, last time we met, we heard these things. Even if it's, this is something we can't address right now, but we're thinking about in future. They just want to be heard. They are going to feel so validated that you actually heard what they were saying, last quarter, last month, even if this doesn't really make sense for the business right now. You still heard them and recognized them and validated it as valuable perspective and feedback. So for the accountability piece, everything has an owner. No matter how granular, everything has an owner. Someone we can go back to for info around changes, updates, completion, etc. And these action items are also communicated both up the ladder and across the org in our summary of the meetings and our meeting notes and everything. So there's a lot of visibility, which really provides incentive for those owners to be accountable. So the next piece of this is where and how. This is not super helpful, but really it's whatever works for you. And what I mean by that is put the information in a place where the teams you're working with are already living. The quickest path to success with this is to plug into existing processes as much as possible. The minute you try introducing a new tool or a new process or a new anything, really, teams are busy. Let's not make this an additional checkoff for them. Let's just plug it into what they're already doing. It's not a separate thing they have to remember. It just exists within their process. And when we build this out, it looks a little different for different boards, right? So the feedback that comes out of an executive advisory board is very different than the feedback that comes out of a user advisory board. So my team lives and breathes in Airtable. That's where everything lives, our membership, our recruiting, project planning, everything. So it makes sense for us to track what we need to track there. However, for user advisory boards, the feedback is so much more tactical and needs to be addressed by product managers and product development, engineering teams. So we plug in where they live. They all live in Jira. Jira tickets are created by those owners and tagged with a specific tag for the user advisory board so that we can then log in, look at a dashboard and see exactly where everything is on that spectrum of planning, research, development, etc. And it doesn't have to be that sophisticated. I mean, this can be an Excel doc. This can be in a workflow management system like Workfront or Monday or Airtable, Jira. If you're working with software, I know some project management organizations use it too. Really, whatever's going to give you the least resistance with the people you're working with is going to be your best option. So what has this looked like so far in practice? In 2022, we can attribute 7 big changes that influenced roadmap, strategic direction, features, etc. And I think it's important to call out 2 things here. Even when I look at this number, I'm like, oh, 7. Oh, that's okay, cool. But when you're talking about multi-year initiatives and roadmaps that might span 3 years, 5 years, when you're talking about features and functionality that might take months to build, it shifts your perspective a little bit, especially in a matrix organization where there's a lot of moving pieces, there's a lot of teams involved, and getting all of those folks aligned to enact change is sometimes a Herculean effort. A big part of this is also change management, both from the perspective of our team and how we're debriefing and running things through our process and tracking and following up, but as well as the teams we work with. We're changing that checkbox mentality of, okay, we've had our meeting, but actually let's dive into the feedback and digest it and analyze it and understand the impact it can have and the impact it should have and the impact we need it to have. So far in 2023, in just the first quarter, we've already had 11 of these pieces of feedback ideas that have fundamentally changed some aspect of our products, whether that's the roadmap plans, whether that's our pricing structure, whether that's feature functionality, user experience, anything across the board that we can directly tie back to our board members and our board meetings. So this is really a powerful tool, not only for closing the feedback loop with your members, driving impact on the product services organization that your board or boards support. It helps you prove out ROI, and it builds value with and champions your program with internal customers, stakeholders, and sponsors. Your boards and your program are just going to get better and richer because people are going to be more excited to engage internally because they're going to see the value play out in real time. And just a quick case study. This is a quote on the bottom from one of our product managers that we worked with on a board for about 2 years. Given the speed at which we execute, it's not uncommon for us to have boards that maybe run for 1 or 2 years. They're not overall in Adobe boards in their entirety, but rather focused on specific software integrations. But they basically shifted their plans and mindset for their entire first version of this brand new product. because of the feedback that they got from their board. They were able to take a critical look at their prioritization and actually take the feedback from these boards back to their leadership and push back and say, no, look at these companies that we have represented. Look at the conversations we're having. This is what they're telling us. We would be dumb not to listen, frankly, because they are representative of our global customer base. So the bulk of these customers were also able to participate in the beta for this new technology, which was extremely valuable. And all of this resulted in a complete mind shift for their first version of the product. And because of that shift, in the first 3 weeks that this software is available, they closed 10 major multi-million-dollar deals, which is really exciting. And the team was really jazzed. There's so much power in these boards if you can also manage that change management piece with these teams. All right. Last, but definitely not least, let's talk about KPIs and ROI. So these are just some of the metrics that we track for our programs. And these can vary based on your goals, how your organization is structured. This is just what has made sense for us. And we're continuing to readdress these, think about these, improve them, dive deeper into some of them. So one is what we already talked about, the number of pieces of actionable feedback and ideas. We also track the percentage retention of our board members. So what we mean by this is, are they renewing their contracts? Are they dropping off? Are they switching to competitor solutions? We have all of that information internally in Salesforce. So we track that on an annual basis because we want to make sure, obviously, that that is trending on the positive if we're doing our job right. And also building those really entrenched champions for our technologies. We also track internal satisfaction score because we support so many teams and work with so many individuals across the org. It's important to us that we're building programs and running programs that meet their needs. And so this is a big one for us, making sure our internal customers are getting what they need out of the program, because as much as these are customer programs, these are also internal programs. They're really to help us nail our strategy. So we need to make sure those folks are getting what they need. We also, of course, track external satisfaction score. How are our board members feeling about the programs, about the opportunities, about the content we're bringing to them, about their ability to bring feedback to us? Are they feeling heard? Are they enjoying the in-person events? What things can we change? All that good stuff. But we're also tracking investment. And this kind of ties into the retention piece, but how much contract dollars can be attributed to each CAB member, and over time, is that contract value increasing? Is it decreasing? Is it staying the same? We hope it's increasing, but I'm actually going to go ahead and show you what our metrics are for 2022. Obviously, we're in the beginning stages of 2023, so I wanted to give you a good representation of data, but we already talked about this first one. 7 pieces of actionable ideas, feedback that actually, which is really exciting and helps us understand that we are driving value for these customers and they feel like, we are helping them make the most of their investment. Our internal satisfaction score for 2022 is 98%, which is really exciting because that means we're doing our job for the people who need us to do our job. In terms of external satisfaction rate, we're at 83%. And although, of course, I want to see 100%, I will always want to see 100%. The perfectionist in me always wants that. However, we all know the pandemic was rough, right? We had to switch to virtual. A lot of people were getting, virtual meeting fatigue. how are we combating that? How are we discovering a whole new way of doing our jobs, essentially? So we're really happy with 83%. Our goal was 80% because we didn't know what we didn't know, right? There's so many variables. And then in terms of investment, this number is representative of all of our boards. So executive, customer, and user. And we currently have just shy of $870 million in annual recurring revenue represented across our membership. All right. I wanted to leave plenty of time for Q&A, and hopefully I did, Gavin.
Unfortunately, you didn't.
Of course.
But it was awesome. I love the way that you managed to connect the insights to the actual action items that Adobe are taking internally, and then ultimately connect the action items to return on investment. And that answered probably one of the biggest questions we always get posed, and many people put in the Q&A there. So that was great. I guess we probably have a chance for maybe one or two questions at the end here. A lot of people are keen to know, is this your full-time job? Do you have a team of people? So if you could just explain the amount of time you take versus who you work with versus the number of, I guess, customer advisory board members you have, just to put it into.
Yeah, for sure. So this is my full-time job. I oversee all of our advisory board programs globally. It has always been my full-time job, and I will champion anyone who's trying to make the case for it to be a full-time job, because it definitely is. Even if you're just running a single board, like, it's a lot of time and effort. And right now I have a team of myself and two others. We just recently onboarded the third member of our team, Caitlin, about a month ago. Paige has been with us for about a year and a half, and it's really enabled us to really scale. I was kind of a lone soldier for a long time. At one point, essentially running a program that involved about 300 members globally. So I'm very, very excited to have more hands on deck. In terms of number of members, it varies a little bit. Generally, we try to stick to those best practices of 12 to 15. We have padded our numbers a bit with the virtual world just to make sure that we're consistently getting critical mass on our virtual calls. So generally, we're about 25 to 30, but we're also representative globally. So making sure we have a good cross section of vertical, geography, all that kind of stuff.
Great. Awesome. Well, I think that's the end of the session now. And again, thank you very much. You really did a thorough job of taking us through all of those steps. That was great to hear the insight track there.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Bye.